I've been involved with the Y for many years now. My parents played squash here in the 70s. My whole family's worked here at one time or another. And I've seen the positive impact it's had on all of us. And I've pretty much grown up here. I started gymnastics as a kid and then started coaching and kept going from there. Our history goes back a long way. The centre was built in 1965, just the basketball court. It was a place for the local youth to have some recreation and some community connection. The council at the time allowed the Y to build on the council land. I think they saw a need in the community and were pretty keen to work with a like-minded partner. The partnership led to the Y being able to extend in the 70s to build the squash courts, and then in the 80s for the purpose-built gymnastics facility. So then at that point you've got something for the whole family all in one space, and somewhere that people can exercise, they can connect with each other and they can build their self-confidence. Either people within Walkerville or within the greater Adelaide community, which we know is not that big anyway. It wasn't always smooth sailing, and increased operating costs and, transitioning from volunteer to paid staff saw some very dire times. It was at the point where board members were flipping sausages to try and keep the doors open. The board decided to invest in good management, which allowed the facility to thrive. It became financially stable and it enabled the organisation to build and reach even more people than ever before. Even tougher times were ahead though. The changes to local government in '99 meant that the building that had been the YMCA's now became the council's building. The Y found themselves occupying a building that was no longer theirs. At the start of almost a decade of uncertainty and difficulties, the Y invested what they could into the building, but with the end of a short lease nearing, putting precious funds into a facility you may be kicked out of just didn't make sense. A group of representatives from the council met with the Y, and the Y was able to present some plans they had for the site. They had plans to upgrade the facility at the Y's expense. Some in the room were receptive, some had grander plans, and some sat silent. The architectural plans took 6 months to make it to a council meeting. The Y's vision for the site was to be held, and it's unclear if they ever made it back to council for meaningful consideration. The next lease negotiations were also difficult. The Y wrote to council requesting a 10+10 lease to allow full restoration of the premises at the Y's expense, but in return were offered a 2-year lease. The plans for the Oval redevelopment appeared to be council's primary consideration. The next lease negotiations were also difficult. The Y wrote to council requesting a 10+10 year lease to allow full renovations of the premises at the Y's expense, but were only offered a 2-year lease. The plans for the Oval redevelopment appeared to be council's primary recreation focus. The community was told that the Oval redevelopment was not viable without the Y, but there was no space for the Y, so in future plans it was excluded. The short lease felt like council were buying time. Before the lease could be signed, the council employee responsible was replaced, and the replacement was unwilling to have their name on someone else's work, so the whole lot started again. By the time the extension was finalised, the Y was backed into a corner. There was only a few months left on the current lease. The extension had no right for renewal, and council had no interest in including one. Times were desperate. It was suspected that council intended to get rid of the Y, but as discussions regarding the Y were held in confidence in council meetings, and any other communication was difficult at best, the intention was never clear. Fast forward a year, and an obscure mention of revoking community land status occurred in a council meeting. The common address or facilities that sits upon the land were omitted, and the required consultation length was not adhered to. Fortunately, the omission was spotted. The community now had time to respond, however, we still weren't provided with clear intentions for the site. Consultation concluded, and feedback was summarised into a report that managed to show 100% support for retaining the community land status, to indicate that less than 1% of the community had any interest, which is quite a masterful feat. Then the unthinkable. A virus brings the world to its knees. Businesses and facilities are closed. People are told to stay home, stay away from each other, and keep washing their hands. However, not all's quiet during the looming COVID threat and shutdown. The council take the opportunity to notify the Y that their lease is not being renewed, and they submit their application for community land status revocation to the minister. Whether it was incorrect process, overwhelming community sentiment, or something else, council were encouraged to withdraw their application and have now begun again. The blame has been shifted to an obscure reference of a previous council, and the public have been provided a history of the site which falsifies some details and omits many others. Council have stated that they're happy for the site to remain empty, and it's been mentioned that quotes have been obtained for demolition, ready for it to be used as a car park. So I ask, how are we allowing council to act in this manner? What other council would refuse to even meet for a discussion with a partner come tenant that has been serving its community on the site for 55 years? How is council able to present blatant untruths to its community and there be no right for rebuttal? How is a building condition report that identified the building as being structurally sound, just needing some cosmetic improvements, be interpreted with legal advice to present an unacceptable risk? Where is the support from state and federal government to stop recreation facilities being taken away at a time when we need the most? How are we okay with council terminating the lease for an organisation who employs 35 young people at a time when young people are the most likely to be impacted by unemployment? Why is revoking community land status to provide options such as a recreation facility or a recreation centre necessary on a site where a recreation facility already exists? We have a very upset community of clients, children and staff who don't know where to turn. So my last question is, who will support us and stop this from happening? At the moment, consultation is still open, so email your local councillors, email the council, tell them that you want the recreation facilities, and in a separate email, tell them that you want the why, because apparently if you mention the why, they're not going to include your submission. Also, email the Minister for Planning, email the Minister for Sport and Rec. Let them know that you want the facilities there and let them know you want the why there. Together we could get through this, but we need your help. Thanks.